Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Engineer Empire here. I'm a software engineer turned corporate VP and head of technology. I dive into topics like engineering, finance, and business. If that interests you, please hit like or subscribe. Today I'm reacting to are Elon Musk and Tesla giving up on EVs? Let's get into it.
Public backlash against CEO Elon Musk's political positions.
Sales are down 50% year over year. China's sales were down 50%.
In the last couple months, though, the stock's just been obliterated.
Less than 6 months ago, Tesla's story was dramatically different. Shares of the company rose 30% in a single week. The once fledgling and often struggling EV maker was worth more than $1 trillion and more than all the world's other major automakers combined. But in 2025, the stock has plummeted, losing more than 35% of its value since the beginning of the year.
This has definitely been a noticeable trend. There's a couple things that certainly stand out to me as factors for this. I think one, obviously, especially if you're going to specifically point out January, arguably that trend started a little bit closer to sometime in December. But Elon Musk took on a political job as part of Doge, and so he was a fairly controversial figure as part of some of these changes that he was spearheading himself. In addition to that, broader competition in the market, particularly the company BYD, based in China, they have been making so many advancements in the EV market. They are arguably the front runner at this point in time globally. And so they have a lot of headwinds at this point in time. And certainly we've seen Tesla interact with a variety of other projects. I think there's also the Tesla robot now. And so I assume Tesla is certainly having some hard questions about their future and how they're going to make it through this challenging time for them.
In most markets, including the US, China, Europe, and Australia, sales are falling too. While 90% of company revenue comes from selling EVs, Tesla has changed its mission. CEO Elon Musk has sunk billions into projects like self-driving cars and humanoid robots.
The future we're headed for is one where you can literally just have anything you want. What's key to that is robotics and AI.
But feelings about the change in direction, or what some call abandoning the company's original mission, are mixed.
Tesla's mission is to advance sustainable transportation and energy. It was never to create robo-taxis and humanoid robots. And that's Elon just changing Tesla's mission. And now I think that Tesla needs a new CEO.
You can say Tesla's a tech company all you want. It's not. It's a car company. And when you don't sell cars, those losses start to stack up.
I truly believe years from now, autonomous will define Tesla.
Half of Tesla vehicles are built in China. He looks at left and right, north, south. He's surrounded by Chinese competition that are driving costs down. There's price wars, and he's saying, no, there's no way Tesla can win this war in China and probably not globally. So let's take things in a different direction.
So why do some say the company has lost its way? And can it get back on course? CNBC dove in to find out.
I also remember back in the day when Tesla first came out and it was all the rage. Everybody thought it was going to be self-driving cars like in a year or two shortly after its release. There was going to be changes that kept coming out. And also they were absurdly expensive. I think back in the day, they were probably like 100, 120K per car. And this is pre-COVID inflation. So that would have been maybe close to like 150, 200K of value today, which is a lot. So people were showing off with these, and especially because there was such a long wait list, you could really sort of show off and sort of highlight your own prestige and success if you had a Tesla at that point in time. But now they're a little bit more ubiquitous. They also had the sort of lower priced options. And so now I see Teslas all over the place. And I wouldn't necessarily think of them as these luxurious, prestigious items, certainly as much as they were 10 plus years ago. This could also be another factor that's impacting them negatively, which is they went from a very high-end luxury, short supply product that was constantly in demand to something that's more seen as affordable, and especially with some of these other ramifications, as I mentioned, Elon becoming like a political figure, as well as some of the competition they're seeing in the market could be huge hurdles to them. And I agree with some of the sentiment they've highlighted so far. I don't know if you can just pivot that quickly from being a car company to like a robot company and still be successful at that, because what's going to happen to the Teslas that currently exist? Are they just going to stop making them? Are they going to give up on that revenue source? What's going to pay for these robots while they're building them?
Tesla was founded in 2003 by Mark Tarpenning and Martin Eberhard.
We changed the way the world thought about electric cars, and we restarted the EV revolution in the world.
A year later, Elon Musk invested $6.5 million and joined Tesla's board. In 2000,
wow, I actually didn't know this background. I'm not that familiar with Tesla and its origins, so I actually was not familiar with those two founders previously. I had always assumed Elon Musk was the founder of it, or at least that seems to be how he portrays himself. And he's currently CEO, was my understanding, so there must be some background on how that transitioned. I'm curious if they'll elaborate more on that.
In 2006, Musk published the secret Tesla Motors Master Plan. Tesla's overarching purpose was to move the world from fossil fuels to solar and electric power. The plan didn't mention autonomy or robots. The idea was simple: make and sell expensive EVs, use that money to make cheap EVs. In 2014, Tesla began outfitting its vehicles with hardware for a driver assistance system, later called Autopilot. Within a year, it released the software. That's also when Musk said Tesla vehicles would drive themselves within 2 years.
Okay, that's probably where I got that number from, which is I was pretty sure somebody was saying 1 to 2 years. I thought it was the broader market, but it sounds like Elon himself had stated it was going to be happening in that time frame.
Plan Part 2 was released 2 years later. It included an entire section on self-driving cars. The plan said, among other things, that owners would be able to make money renting out their Teslas as rideshare vehicles. The New Yorker asked, will the Tesla Model 3 be the first truly self-driving car?
Since 2015, he said that every year, next year. We're now in 2025, and there's not one car on the road from Elon Musk that can do that.
Rollouts of autopilot and full self-driving features have repeatedly hit delays. Even then, the cars aren't truly self-driving. The two systems require a driver to be able to take over at a moment's notice. Tesla's FSD and autopilot software have landed it in many lawsuits and federal investigations. Neither the DOJ nor Tesla responded to CNBC's requests for comment or an interview. While Musk was promising fully autonomous rentable Teslas, the company was transforming itself into a high-volume electric car maker. Production of the Tesla Model 3, a lower-priced sedan, began in July 2017. A lot of that has paid off. Sales grew 60-fold over a 10-year period. By 2023, the Model Y crossover became the world's best-selling vehicle.
How we're doing on popularity? Well, we actually literally make the best-selling car on Earth of any kind. So that's, and it's for 2 years in a row.
Tesla's shares soared too, although it's been volatile. During Tesla's AI Day investor event, Musk announced that the company would be making a robot. It was a natural move, in Musk's words.
Tesla is arguably the world's biggest robotics company because our cars are like semi-sentient robots on wheels.
Tesla showed off a prototype in 2022. Master Plan 3 focused entirely on sustainable energy.
Master Plan Part 3 is a very long master plan because it's basically making all energy on Earth sustainable.
But since this, more and more attention has focused on robots and autonomous cars. The company released...
Yeah, didn't Tesla make the solar-powered, roof and the charging battery stuff? I think that was under the Tesla umbrella. I don't think that was a separate company. That seemed to be something else that they were doing for some time. So I'm sure that's also why there's some skepticism about these robots, where maybe it's just some tangential project that, maybe they have components of. I wouldn't be surprised as an autonomous vehicle maker that you have a lot of the components necessary to build a bipedal robot. You need sensors, you need motors, you need to have the enclosures, you need to have the AI backing it in order to support its needs, maybe even have voice recognition and other interactions. And so you likely are interacting with a lot of these core components across that business, and you're just trying to find different ways of applying some of your learnings there. But again, that's a huge shift for consumers. If people who are really into the idea of, again, I saw Tesla as a luxurious EV manufacturer back in the day. And I think that's also likely what led to the surge in its market price when it started to go for more affordable options, which is there's so much built up demand that so many people wanted to buy one and be part of the Tesla brand and like the Tesla movement, so to speak. And so I don't know why those people would be buying robots. I think certainly people need cars. People could be pro green energy and electric vehicles, maybe even pro autonomous vehicles, and trying to push the advancement of technology and AI when it comes to safety in a car. But I'm not sure how that translates to a robot. I'm not sure if the same target audience needs robots in their daily life.
It's a demo video of Optimus sorting objects. At its We Robot event in late 2024, the company unveiled the Cybercab, a 2-passenger, fully autonomous car planned for production in 2026, the Robovan, a much bigger vehicle, and a dancing robot. Wall Street was underwhelmed, and shares dropped 9% on the day.
We expect to be in production with the Cybercab that probably, well, I tend to be a little optimistic with timeframes, but in 2026.
Just days later, the company abandoned its plan to make a low-cost EV, calling it pointless for human drivers. And since, Musk has doubled down on his shift.
I've kind of described Master Plan 4 essentially, which is like autonomous cars, autonomous humanoid robots. You combine that with like solar and battery storage, and I think the future is going to be incredible.
Now this year he actually has to deliver FSD, and let me be the first to tell you, he's not going to deliver.
If you go back to the history of Musk and Tesla, there's been many times no way they can do it. Impossible. I'm not.
Wow, we got quite the fans over here. Definitely pro Elon and his ability to deliver.
It is going to be hard to get there, but I truly believe years from now, autonomous will define Tesla.
Tesla is supposed to launch unsupervised full self-driving as a paid service in June 2025.
The technology does not work. He uses camera only. Every other car that is driverless on the road right now uses LiDAR and radar. Tesla does not. It just fundamentally doesn't work.
After spending a lot of time watching Waymo and being in Waymos, I've decided that the hardware is insufficient on a current Tesla.
Musk has acknowledged some of the challenges.
The honest answer is that we're going to have to upgrade people's hardware 3 computer for those that have bought full self-driving, and that is the honest answer. And that's going to be painful and difficult, but we'll get it done.
But Musk says that LiDAR, a technology that uses lasers to measure distances and construct pictures of an environment, still isn't necessary or even good for autonomous vehicles.
If anybody could do it, given the massive amounts of data that Tesla has to feed into these AI models, and the progress they've made, and every iteration that we've seen of FSD and we've experienced with FSD at Tesla, it's better and better and better. So there are definitely some people out there who say it's never going to work without LiDAR. We think it will.
I believe they can get there without LiDAR. I mean, again, I'm not saying to get to the last mile, you might not need some LiDAR, but I think the biggest thing going for Tesla is the miles driven, the data that's unprecedented.
Even if the hardware works, bearish analysts say Tesla is behind competitors. Google's self-driving arm, Waymo, does 200,000 rides a week in 4 cities, with more on the way.
What he's about to deliver is basically the same thing that Waymo offered 10 years ago.
So bearish investors basically think 2 things. 1, Tesla cars are not equipped with the tech needed to achieve full self-driving. 2, competitors like Waymo are ahead, way ahead. Bulls say otherwise.
Tesla's going to be able to produce Cybercabs $30,000, $35,000. Waymos are $240,000 cars. You can't scale them, and they're only in 4 cities. When you look at Cybercabs in terms of the fleet concept, producing it at mass, in that concept, their profit, it's a phenomenal business model.
Michael Dunn has studied China's EV revolution closely and says the move to robotics may be the US's only chance to compete.
If we go all in on electrics today, we cannot compete with China. And I think the current administration has made it clear that electrics are not a priority, that we'll bide our time. And the hope is that American companies will innovate and be able to capture that next wave of what a vehicle of the future looks like in order to compete with the Chinese. For example, autonomy, Waymos and Teslas and NVIDIA's powering really amazing vehicles of the future, moving away from EVs to AVs and robotics.
But even if Tesla gets the tech right, skeptics say the business case isn't there. If one of these companies, much less 4 or 5, figure out how to make fully autonomous robo-taxis at scale, they could pack the streets of every city with them.
There's no limit to how many robo-taxis Google can make because they don't need humans. So they can just keep making more and more and more of these things. And so what happens is that as this is deployed in mass scale, pricing comes down and the scale players will be profitable, but it'll be like Amazon where you have a small profit margin and you have to have large scale.
There's also more to running a rideshare business than just driving the car.
You replace the cheapest part of the system, which is a minimum wage driver, by a very, very expensive technology. And you need to hire many people around it to replace the driver, because the driver was also the guy who cleaned the car, also doing safety.
Then there's valuations.
There's no estimates for these growth verticals that they're going to go into. And you need to have more estimates for how much robo-taxi revenue they're going to generate. And those estimates don't even exist. So what are we comparing it to? We're just...
Yeah, so the previous individual was talking about how they would likely need to replace that driver with other people. I think that is true, but I don't know if at face value that person is the cheapest component of a taxi. Again, because if the point is to clean, you could have all the cars basically presumably go through a car drive-through to get cleaned on the outside. That's going to presumably be cheaper than a human being trying to do it and much more thorough. And then you'd have to clean the inside of the car, but you likely could do this like assembly line style and could literally have a car drive up, have a person go in, vacuum and clean the entirety of the inside of the car, be done, move on to the very next car that immediately drives up, and then you keep repeating. That's going to be far more efficient, I would assume. And also, you don't have to worry about other things like, for instance, how safe is it driving with an individual in the middle of the night? You don't know how late that person has been staying up, whether they are alert at that point in time. And so you likely could also reduce accidents, which likely would have a large benefit to it. But agreed, you would also have to have other people like engineers who are maintaining these cars and also maintaining the additional equipment and technology that is attached to the vehicle in order to support the autonomous driving. But I think that does have an advantage of scale. That doesn't mean it's necessarily going to be cheaper day one, but I do think presumably they would find a way to make it cheaper as they continue to roll it out.
There's no benchmark or ruler out there that we can say, I could say, oh, well, consensus thinks they'll do 50 million in robo-taxi revenue in 2029. I think they'll do 75 million, so I think that this stock is a buy. There's literally no estimates.
So, 3 hurdles to clear. Tesla needs autonomous tech. They need to be at least as good as Waymo or anyone else. They have to make money in what could be an extremely low-margin business, if it's a business worth doing in the first place. Then there are the robots.
So this year, we hopefully will be able to make about 5,000 Optimus robots. We're aiming for enough parts to make 10,000, maybe 12,000.
So the idea that we're going to have some robot that's super useful that can do all these things for us anytime soon is a fantasy. It's just a sci-fi fantasy when basic things like the Roomba are still struggling to wash our floors. And then the longer term business of building robots is a highly competitive business with no real market yet. So selling.
I think the Roomba comparison is a really good argument here, where it is a hyper specialized robot with a very specific task. And they're already pretty prevalent. Like, I think most people are aware of the existence of Roombas, especially in America. And they've been out for years and years and years, and they're still growing. And they're becoming more and more available, and more folks have them. And yet they're not perfect at what they do, even though they have a very limited scope in their responsibilities. And so having a robot that could do anything for you is a really hard challenge. Like, you could argue, well, maybe it'd be better at avoiding obstacles than maybe like a Roomba robot would be. But is it going to be just as good at cleaning or doing other things as a Roomba would be? Probably not. And that would probably be true for a lot of other things. And there's also a lot of safety hazards that you'd probably want to be mindful of. I think similarly with like a Tesla car that's autonomously driving, there have been accidents with those, and I would assume the same thing for a robot. A robot is probably going to be stronger than a standard human individual, never mind like a child or an animal or something like that. And if it doesn't see one of these things and it moves too quickly or too abruptly or forcefully or lifts something up or puts something down that is heavy for that other individual that's interacting with it or nearby, there could be accidents and harm to that individual. And so that's extra risk that like a Roomba doesn't have. And so if Roombas aren't perfect at their job, it's very, very unlikely that a bipedal robot is going to be great at a number of tasks.
Consumer robots, to me, is like a pie in the sky bet. I'm an activist investor, and I still think Tesla has the best products and services.
But those products and services, he says, are the EVs, energy storage devices like power walls, even the solar roofs, which Musk once gave as much attention to as the products he is touting today.
Tesla is losing market share, big part because they are not pursuing the lower cost model. Absolutely a strategic mistake, and maybe it's not the US market, it's the global market that really asked for this car.
Ford and GM can't compete at all with these Chinese companies, at all. The only real competitor to the Chinese companies is Tesla, but they haven't been able to introduce a lower price point car, and they're losing that share of the market very quickly to the Chinese.
Musk's public reputation is deteriorating, and the backlash against him is hurting Tesla.
I can't walk past the TV without seeing a Tesla on fire. You're like, what's going on? Some people, it's like, listen, I understand if you don't want to buy our product, but you don't have to burn it down. That's a bit unreasonable, you know? Like, this is psycho. Stop being psycho.
The bad news for him is he's only got one way for him to go now, which is down. So this honeymoon of, I don't know, what was it, a month? It's over. And if the board of directors actually did what was best for Tesla and had a real CEO and refocused its image on what it really does well, which is make EVs and batteries and charging, and really did that business, it's an incredibly important company for the future.
The challenge with simply returning to EVs is that if Tesla is merely an automaker, its share price may be way too high.
Tesla's a very expensive auto OEM. Compared to the growth you're getting, compared to the margins you're getting. And I think they benefited from a unique moment in time when people had a lot of discretionary income. Oil was more expensive because the Russia-Ukraine war was starting, and they sold a lot of EVs at very high margins.
It trades over 105 times earnings, which is not only expensive to the overall market, but that's even more expensive than its own historical average. So I think for all those reasons, whether I find another place to add my money or I wait for a better entry point, I would not jump in with 2 feet at Tesla right now.
If you're buying Tesla because they sell EVs to you and to the public, the stock's overvalued, we think, right? If you're buying it because there's a very large growth opportunity in their energy storage and generation business, and there's a very large growth opportunity in Optimus and FSD and robotaxi, then the stock really can work.
This stock has a maniacal retail investor base. It's basically, it's a cult, right? And so how do you deprogram a cult, or what causes that to happen? I don't know. But it's a cult that's made a lot. It's a cult that's made a lot of money, which is even harder to think about when it ends.
What I'm saying is, hang on to your stock. So.
Thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed what you've seen, please hit like or subscribe. I will see you around.